I'm gonna make Paul host. Okay, so I think that we are going to get started. Let me say again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's a real pleasure to see so many colleagues and friends joining us today. And on behalf of the AEPJ, I would like to thank you all very warmly for being here today with us. For us, this session it's a very special one. As many of you know, at AEPJ, we work every day to support, protect, and promote Jewish heritage across Europe, not only as something connected to memory and preservation, but as something very much alive, something that can create knowledge, dialogue, community, and new opportunities for the future. And this is why the World Monuments Watch is such an important program in the field, and why we are so glad to present it today together with the World Monuments Fund. It's also a real pleasure for me to introduce Javier. We have known each other for quite a long time now, and over the year it has been great to stay in touch, but also to collaborate together. More recently, we have had the opportunity to work together in connection with the project of the Fabric Synagogue in Timisoara, a project that I can say that it's very close to my heart. I had the privilege of visiting the synagogue myself, know the project firsthand, and it really reminded me how important it is to have the right combination of local commitment, international support, technical expertise, but also long-term vision. And I think Javier brings exactly that kind of perspective. So I am especially happy that he is with us today. Just a few words about him. Javier is Senior Manager of Special Programs at the World Monuments Fund, where he oversees several important initiatives, including the Jewish Heritage Program. And he brings with him a very strong background in architecture, conservation, and international heritage work. Before giving him the floor, just a quick practical note. During the presentation, please feel free to write your questions in the chat. At the end of Javier's presentation, we will have the time for some Q&A. And Paul Sanchez, my colleague here, AEPJ's communication officer, will help us to collect the questions from the chat and pass them on to Javier so we can address as many of them as possible. Javier, thank you very much for being with us today. As you can see, we have a very nice minyan of participants in the room, and the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Victor. Gracias. And hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm gonna try not to take too much time for my presentation, because I think the most interesting part will be probably, and I hope, the conversation and discussion and questions that you will all have. But I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. As Victor said, here, you can see my screen now. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks for
perfect.
confirming. Great. So, yeah, as Victor said, my name is Javier Orsosin. I am an architect originally from Spain, but I've been living in the US now for a number of years. I've been working at World Monuments Fund for the last decade, overseeing our special programs, which include 3 thematic programs, and one of them focused on our Jewish Heritage Program. Today, my objective is to share with you a little overview of our World Monuments Watch and how the watch works with our Jewish Heritage Program, and then just give you a quick overview of one of our projects, just to use that as an example and as an inspiration for us to have a discussion. The reason why we wanted to have this conversation today, or this presentation, was because we currently have the call for submissions for nominations to the 2027 World Monuments Watch program, and it will be open for a couple more weeks. And this is an opportunity for everyone who is interested in engaging World Monuments Fund, in working with us, in implementing meaningful projects, conservation projects, heritage projects at meaningful Jewish heritage sites around the world, to bring them to us through the watch. But let's start from the very beginning. What is World Monuments Fund? Because maybe some of you have known about us, maybe some of you have heard about us or know some of our projects perhaps, or maybe you know nothing about us, which is completely fine. But so let me just give you a kind of quick overview of us. We are an international non-profit organization based in New York. Our global headquarters is in New York, and we were founded in 1965. Since then, we have, as you can see here, just some numbers to see the scale of our work. Since, for the last 50 years, really, 60 years since the foundation of the organization, we've implemented more than 300 projects and raised more than $800 million to implement those projects. And these are projects that really cover all the spectrum of activities and initiatives in the field of heritage preservation. Our team is really spread out around the world. We have kind of our core team here in our headquarters in New York, and this is where I am based. But we also have international staff members, mainly people who actually are part of my team, who are spread out around the world, implementing projects and also identifying new projects and working with us directly. But then we actually employ more than 800 people through our field projects. And this is really through our field initiatives and projects where we assemble local teams of workers, architects, engineers, archaeologists, urban planners, that really work with us, really doing all the work in the field. The reach of our work is more or less represented through this map. Our, again, headquarters is located in New York, and we have a number of affiliate offices in some countries throughout the world. But also we have projects really all over. We also don't cover the entire, all the countries in the world, although we sometimes kind of try a little bit. But we have, a very kind of global representation from the Americas, Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia. So really, we have projects really kind of all over. Just kind of like a quick kind of timeline of our organization. I'm not going to go through every single point in this timeline, but as I said, the organization was founded in 1965. Over the years, we've created and launched different initiatives and programs. But really what is relevant for our conversation today is in 1988, when we founded our Jewish Heritage Program. The program was really founded out of a necessity, really, a necessity and an opportunity for World Monuments Fund to fill a gap in the field. Because really, after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, but also the falling of the communist bloc and the Berlin Wall, there was an interest and a need. There was a need and then an interest from us to cover that need of assessing the state of Jewish heritage in Europe, in Central and Eastern Europe mainly, and to understand if World Monuments Fund could help in the preservation of Jewish heritage sites in that part of the world. And the reality is that we did, in fact, for many years, we supported many different projects, sometimes through grants and sometimes through engaging the projects directly, and implemented a lot of research, documentation, planning, and physical work in many countries. But it was really 1988 that marked the beginning of our Jewish Heritage Program. Then over the years, we established other initiatives and programs, which you can see here. In the most recent one was really in 2019, when we created our crisis response program, really to be able to have an internal framework to respond to the needs that emerge from the field at heritage sites affected by both natural disasters and in conflict zones. So what do? Our work really covers all the spectrum of activities in the heritage field, from advocacy and working with local authorities recognizing and communities recognizing historic sites, all the way to the physical restoration of sites. And this is an image of one of the sites that we've been restoring in Angkor Archaeological Park in Cambodia. But also, all the work focused on training and capacity building, really training on traditional conservation skills, construction and conservation, in many different parts of the world, especially in places where there is really a need to bring that type of training. And we do that type of work through partnerships by working with local communities, and by local communities, we mean the local people who care and for whom those sites are very important and use them, benefit from them. But also local community, meaning also local experts, local authorities, municipal governments, local NGOs, ministries of culture. Every project is very different, and we are required to engage all these different stakeholders and community members in different ways. But really, for us, every project is an opportunity to create a platform to bring all these actors together and be a part of the design and the implementation of these projects. We also bring expertise. Sometimes there's local expertise, sometimes there might be specific type of skills that are needed, and we bring those from outside. Again, every project is an opportunity also for knowledge exchange between local and international professionals. And then, by just trying to bring also innovative solutions, creative thinking in every project, so that we can also approach the conservation needs and the field in a way that helps us advance the field and to explore new ways of working. So how do we do this type of work? How do we engage with sites in the field to implement this type of projects? We do it through different types of channels, but a key channel for World Monuments Fund is our World Monuments Watch. The Watch, for those of you who don't know, is a biennial program where every 2 years we open a call for nominations, a call for submissions, and basically ask the world to bring sites to us. This is important for us because as we try to work more and more with communities, with and for communities, it's important that the sites that we engage really come to us from local groups. And those local groups can be members of a local community, local professionals, local NGOs who care and have the capacity to work with us implementing a project. So every 2 years we open this call and we receive hundreds of submissions of sites around the world. And we are now in the process of the call for nominations for the 2027 Watch, which, as I mentioned before, and you can see here on the screen, is going to be open until March 20th. And once we close the nomination process, we select only 25 sites, which is a small number of sites in comparison to the hundreds of submissions that we receive. But the reality is that we do that because we want to make sure that for those 25 sites, we have the capacity to engage them in a meaningful way. We have the capacity to raise funds for the sites, to implement projects, to work in a meaningful, thoughtful way with our local partners, and really engage those sites for sometimes those projects last for a couple of years, 3 years. In other occasions, they may even last for an entire decade, really depending on the local needs. We engage many different types of sites. Really, the call in a way is for us an opportunity to see the state of the field. It's a little window to the world, we like to say, because we engage sites that come from different geographical regions in the world that are very different in terms of their typologies, sites that are more ancient and archaeological sites, but also sites from the 20th century modernist buildings, and you can see some of them here. Sites that represent different communities, religious communities, ethnic communities. We really try to curate the watch in a way that it really represents the diversity of the world, but also the diverse of heritage sites around the world and the needs that those sites are presenting today. The selection of the final 25 is really done through a collaboration between an internal review process done by all the experts in my team in my department, but also experts from ICOMOS, the International Council of Monuments and Sites, who help us really narrow down the final 25. And then we also have a panel of experts. These are people who come from the world of heritage, architecture, art, museum, academia. And again, they help us select the final 25 sites. Once the sites are included in the watch, if there is a Jewish heritage site, which there's always at least one, if not more, then that site automatically kind of moves under the umbrella of our Jewish heritage program, which I oversee. As I said earlier, the program was founded in 1988, and we've implemented many projects around the world, and being able to raise funds to support those projects. So you can see some of those numbers here. But basically, and here you can see a map of our kind of the countries, regions in the world where we have been present over the years, and the numbers of completed projects through our Jewish Heritage Program. Because basically, once a site is included in the watch and automatically comes to our Jewish Heritage Program, then we, I'm just going to go quickly. Well, maybe I can stay on this slide for a minute. Then it's my responsibility to work with the group who nominated that site and brought it to World Monuments Fund to understand the significance, the history of that site, the community that is behind the nomination and behind the site, who really cares about this building, and also what is the current condition of the building in terms of its physical condition, but also usage, needs for conservation, maintenance. Has the site been neglected? Are there needs for specific types of emergency actions for a site to avoid its collapse? Are there needs for community engagement activities, documentation, research, really, to cover, we can cover all types of projects, but really to understand those needs, and then with those needs in mind, design a project together, and then raise the funds and go ahead and implement it. That's really our goal. Over the years, we've had multiple sites, particularly in the last decade, since I joined World Monuments Fund. I've been involved in different projects that emerged from the watch, from a site in Morocco to a site in Bukhara in Uzbekistan, to a site that I want to tell you a little bit now about, which is the Fabric Synagogue of Timisoara in Romania, where we are in the process. We are actually actively working right now there on a project to develop an adaptive reuse plan for the building. So let me tell you a little bit about Timisoara. The Fabric Synagogue is located in the city of Timisoara, which is in western Romania, near the border with Serbia. And it's an incredible building that was designed by this gentleman. This is Leopold Baumhorn, a Hungarian architect, who maybe some of you, I'm sure most of you, in fact, might know about him. He designed many synagogues and all other types of buildings in Central and Eastern Europe, and he was a very prolific architect. And he's the architect behind the Fabric Synagogue, this incredible building that was designed in the late 19th century. The building was constructed between 1897 and 1899 in the Fabric Synagogue of Timisoara, a neighborhood that is mainly residential now and developed in the late 19th century, but that used to be an industrial neighborhood with a lot of textile factories, and that's why the neighborhood is called today the Fabric Neighborhood, and the synagogue is called the Fabric Synagogue. The synagogue is right in that little corner that you see here on the screen. And it's an incredible building designed in neo-Moorish architecture, and in really located in a very nice, very pleasant, actually, neighborhood these days, and back then as well. But unfortunately, after the Second World War, the synagogue actually closed. This was as a result of the really the departure of the Jewish community of Timisoara. Fortunately, largely the Jewish community in Timisoara was not affected directly by the Holocaust, in the sense of that they were not taken to concentration camps or killed, but in fact they left to be safe, which meant essentially that the population went from thousands of Timisoaran Jewish people to only around 200 people who currently live in the city. Timisoara has 3 synagogues, and after the Second World War, this synagogue, the Fabric Synagogue, basically was closed and abandoned because the community was so small that they didn't need it, and they concentrated all their activities in. Sorry, I hear some background. Yeah. They concentrated the use of the citadel, the Chetate synagogue, in the historic center of Timisoara. So the building actually sat down empty and abandoned and neglected for 50 years. And this is the condition that the building was when it came to World Monuments Fund a few years ago. While we were in the process of opening the call for nominations for the 2022 Watch, I was in contact with 2 members of the local Jewish community in Timisoara, Ronnie Wagman and Luciana Friedman, who I believe are also part of the AEPJ network, so maybe some of you know them. And they brought to us the idea of nominating the Fabric Synagogue to the Watch. So long story short, the Fabric Synagogue was nominated alongside 200 other sites from all over the world, but it was included, and you can see here, these are the 25 sites on the screen, and on the right lower corner, you can see the Fabric Synagogue. And immediately after the Fabric Synagogue was included in the Watch, I started all those conversations with Luciana and with Ronnie to understand really the needs for a project at the site. I conducted a site visit, so this is just an image of the first site visit that I conducted. And while I speak, I'm just going to show you this video that I just took with my phone during our first site visit together. This is in 2023, so that you understand the damage on the building and the condition. The building, again, had been abandoned and closed for 50 years. It's always owned by the Jewish community, but it was vandalized. There's graffiti. There's animals, birds that used to live in the building. Pieces of the building had been stolen and broken. The stained glass windows were largely in good conditions, although they had damage. 50 years of abandonment is a long, long time. But we also realized in that process of assessing the structure that the building was in fact not in. It was still structurally safe and sound, let's say, but you can see also the incredible piece of architecture. This is, a major building in the city and an incredible building. So again, this is just a video for you to see the kind of the scale and the significance and the condition of the building. So that site visit and those conversations led us to understand that the need for the site was to develop an adaptive reuse plan, because the local Jewish community didn't have the capacity to conserve and restore the building, but also didn't have the capacity to maintain it, and also didn't have the need to use it because they have 2 other synagogues that were really serving their religious purposes already. So the idea of developing an adaptive reuse plan that would be respectful to the historical significance of the building and its architectural fabric emerged. And we were able to discuss that idea with the mayor of Timisoara, and this is me and Luciana Friedman with the mayor of Timisoara having a meeting to discuss the project. And the idea that emerged from those conversations was that the city would take over the ownership and management of the building, with the condition that World Monuments Fund would work with the local Jewish community on developing an adaptive reuse plan. And this is the moment when the leader of the Jewish community of Romania came from Bucharest to have the kind of handover event of the synagogue to the city. And at that time, we started working with the municipality, who were the new owners, on a project to develop an adaptive reuse plan that would involve the local Jewish community and the municipal government, but that also would assemble a group of experts led by an architecture firm that would work with us called Atelier Cetrei, a Romanian architecture firm, and then a multidisciplinary group of experts, engineers, historians, archaeologists, that would work with us developing this plan, and with the support of AEPJ as a European partner to support and to bring kind of like a broader perspective on the need and the platform that a project like this could become for this site specifically, but for others in Europe as well. Our project at the Fabric Synagogue, again, focused on developing an adaptive reuse plan and doing that through a participatory process that would involve all the key actors and stakeholders that have a connection with the building. And that included the local Jewish community, the residents of the Fabric neighborhood who live immediately next to the building, the municipality, and then a group of local Romanian heritage experts, to really bring the different perspectives that all of them have and different association to the building, and try to come up with a solution that would serve all these needs and perspectives. So for the participatory process, the participatory planning process, we conducted a series of workshops and site visits. This was conducted with our team of architects from Atelier Cetrei, and those site visits and workshops involved all these different groups. We did it separately so that we could also engage in conversations and extract the necessary information about the needs for the building and the ideas for the future use. And through those site visits, connected also with the larger Fabric neighborhood, which is also in the process of defining a new master plan for. We understood that the Fabric Synagogue could become an anchor site, a landmark on that master plan for the neighborhood to define this new use. The activities also focused on looking back into the history and social significance of the Fabric Synagogue, and presenting all the kind of elements that give the building an important architectural significance and therefore need to be preserved. And then, really through conversations and different activities and questionnaires that you can see here, some photos, really extract the views and aspirations and ideas from all these different groups. After we conducted all these workshops and site visits, which took months of coordination as well, because it's hard to really bring so many people together in a meaningful way, we went through kind of an assessment evaluation process to extract all this information and make it useful for the municipality in terms of potential uses of the building as a space of memory, as a space for library, for students, for cultural activities, for performing arts. So these are what you see here in these graphics are just kind of like a summary encapsulated of all the different needs and ideas that emerged from those workshops, from things that really made a lot of sense, again, like as kind of space of memory or a library, to things like, for instance, the needs for food services or hospitality, which, as you can see here, the responses were much lower, but those are questions that came up during that process. We, in parallel to kind of all that participatory process and community engagement process, we engaged in a technical process to assess the condition of this building, which was very critical because, again, while visually, through a visual analysis, it looked first in very bad conditions, but structurally sound, we had to actually do a thorough condition assessment of the building to understand really the actual physical condition of the structure. So we did that. We had to remove a lot of the plaster on the walls to understand the damage on the bricks, on the concrete, on all the structural elements, understand the areas where there is animals, water filtration, cracks, etc. So these are some of those images of that process. Then we did a 3D scanning of the entire synagogue, outside and inside, to develop a 3D model that you can see here. And then from that 3D model, develop all the architectural drawings, plans, elevations, sections, that then again, we could use as the base for our proposal. These are some of the photographs of the process. In these particular photographs, you can see the assessment of the foundations. We also, had to make sure that the foundations were in good conditions. And this is because part of the adaptive reuse plan also includes all the conservation actions that need to be implemented to not only conserve the building, but to make sure that it's structurally stable. And then we did a kind of like a bigger analysis in terms of the neighborhood, the fabric neighborhood, and the relationship between the synagogue and the neighborhood with the historic center of Timisoara, which has been receiving a lot of kind of attention and resources recently, because the mayor and the city have been investing a lot in revitalizing the historic center. So what you see here, this blue dot in the middle, is the fabric synagogue. And this area here that says Chetate is the historic center, the core of the historic center of Timisoara. And then really analyzed all the different streets around the building in terms of trees, pedestrian space for cars and parking, circulation, parks, a big kind of urban analysis that was in relation to the synagogue. And you can see here, this kind of processes and analysis on how the different blocks around the building have evolved over time. And with all that information, we developed an adaptive reuse plan that, in fact, we just finished a couple weeks ago. And these are just some of the diagrams of the different uses that are included in the new adaptive reuse plan. And this is the floor plan that includes the main synagogue, but also this building here on the right side, which is the house of prayers. That was just a few days ago also handed over to the municipality so that it can be integrated in the bigger plan for the building, which will include a space of memory in the right side of the prayer house of the historic synagogue. The courtyard will be accessible for everyone, and then the main space will be used as a space for local students to use for lectures, conferences, to do participatory and group work. There will be spaces for collaborative teamwork, computers, a space for local exhibitions, but all connected to basically the student life and connected to the two local universities, the Polytechnic University of Timisoara and the University of Timisoara, which actually both campuses are nearby. But really, having the space as a space that can be used in multiple different ways. And here you can see 3 options of how the space can be used. And always the good thing about this approach is that we are keeping the synagogue, preserving it, and keeping all the elements in the interior preserved and restored, so that while there will be a space of memory in the former house of prayers, really the entire building will stay as a space of memory, because it will be preserved and restored while used with this new programming for students. So I want to finish with this beautiful photograph that I think really represents the incredible building that we're talking about and the neighborhood that surrounds it. And we just finished the adaptive reuse plan, and we are now trying to focus on the actual implementation. So in the next few months, we hope that we'll be able to do a small pilot physical project to test some of the restoration of the interiors and the facade. And then from there, hire an architect to actually implement this adaptive reuse plan, which is going to take a lot of time and energy. But I'm going to leave it here. This is just an example of one project. I have many other projects that I could show you, but I think what it's important for me today is to first answer any questions you might have of my presentation, but also hear about any ideas you might have, any sites that might be in need and you think that could benefit from being in the watch, and really have a conversation with you all. So thank you so much.
Javier, thank you so much for your inspiring presentation and for also helping us to understand better the essence of the project and the concrete example of Timisoara that I think that it's very, very revealing. No, we are great fans of the work that you're doing in Timisoara. We love the overall aim of the project, but we are really, really interested also in the process, how you combine this participatory approach and a long-term vision, rethinking also not just the purpose of the building, but also reimagining the role of that building within a living community. So thanks for your again for your presentation. I know that we have some questions with Paul, but maybe before handling it to Paul, maybe a more practical question before opening all the floor. If I'm interested in applying and nominating a site, a very technical question, Javier, how do you foresee this process? There's a deadline that it's set for the 20th of March. There's not much time. Are we in time to nominate a place in your view?
Yes. So exactly, the call is still open. And in fact, I had a screenshot of the nomination page in our website, but maybe now in a minute I can share the link here in the chat, because it's very easy and accessible. It's in our website, the main page of the watch nomination kind of call, but then within that page there is a link to the actual form, and it's very easy. It's a kind of one of those online forms where you need to register, and the form itself, the nomination itself, is not really complicated. It really takes time because we want to understand, the history and significance of these buildings that come to us, these sites. We want to understand the current condition today and the reason why you are nominating them to the watch, because there is a need that we can help, because there's an opportunity, because there is a threat to the sites. Sites don't need to be threatened to be nominated. They can be just fine, in fact, but there are sites where we can bring, and communities where we can bring our expertise and our skills and resources to help in some way. Now, from the practical point of view, the deadline is March 20th, which is in 11 days. But the reality is that if once you open a form and create a nomination, we might be able to give you a week or a couple extra weeks if needed. The call will be officially closed on the 20th, but again, if you have an active nomination process open, we'll be able to give you those extra weeks. We always do it because we all put together proposals, and we know that we tend to do things in the last minute. So we'll be happy to work with you. I'll be happy to work with you directly. And then the reality is that you don't need to do this blindly. I'm here, and in fact, I've been in contact with some of you in the past and currently. And, the nomination, for instance, of the Fabric Synagogue, I was in constant communication with Ronnie and then with Luciana later on to really guide them on kind of what World Monuments Fund is looking for and how we can help, and also what is the kind of the internal strategy of World Monuments Fund to ensure that your ideas and our ideas are aligned. And if it doesn't make sense, obviously you don't have to make up anything, but if it makes sense, to make sure that they are clearly articulated through the nomination, because it's part of my role to make sure that we bring, meaningful nominations to World Monuments Fund. So all this to say that I will be happy if someone is interested in having a conversation, but also in guiding them or answering any questions once they open the nomination form and understand the questions that we are asking you.
That's clear. Thank you. Thank you, Javier. I'm going to handle it to Paul, but obviously asking you if there's any question that you want to direct to Javier. Just raise your hand and we will give you the floor. Paul, floor is yours.
Precisely. As Victor said, this is the time for questions. So if any of you want to ask a question directly to Javier, feel free to lift your hand or write it down in the chat so I can read it out to him. And you will be unmuted if you want to speak out loud. Does anyone have any questions right now? Not right now. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to read one that I have received via WhatsApp, I suppose for privacy reasons. The question goes, many Jewish heritage sites across Europe are relatively small or locally managed, often with strong community involvement, but that means they also have limited institutional muscle. Javier, do you see the watch as a useful tool for these kinds of smaller locally managed sites? And what would make a nomination from a smaller community particularly compelling?
Yeah, that's a really good question because, in fact, we engage sites that face that situation very frequently. And again, just to go back to our project in Timisoara, but also, another project the two other projects that we currently are implementing in a small city called Debdou in Morocco, in northeast Morocco, and then also in Bukhara in Uzbekistan. In all these cases, really the communities that we are working with are very small and they don't have a lot of capacity to manage these projects, to bring resources or technical expertise. So, and that's precisely kind of, the reason why we get involved in those sites and projects, because there is a clear need and a clear gap that we can fill. And, just like, again, going back to the case of Timisoara, the synagogue, the fabric synagogue, has been abandoned for 50 years, always owned by the Jewish community, but really abandoned because they didn't have the resources to maintain it, but they also didn't have the need to use it. And our work was not only to develop the adaptive reuse plan, but also to create the circumstances, the platform for the municipality to accept taking over the management of the building. Once the site, the Fabric Synagogue, was included in the watch, we initiated that conversation with the municipal government, with the city and the mayor. And it was because of the watch and because of World Monuments Fund commitment to help that the city accepted a request that had been coming from the community for years, but finally was accepted by the government because they accepted taking over the synagogue, its management and ownership, with the condition that we would develop the adaptive reuse plan and we would pay for it. We would fund and develop the plan and also lead the entire process from beginning to end. And that was possible because we were involved, and we are very happy, to also play that kind of more diplomatic role to facilitate those conversations. And so, yeah, so we are, we don't only necessarily go to communities that are large and have a lot of people and resources and expertise, which we might also go there for other reasons, but also to places where the communities are small or in some cases are completely gone. In Morocco, in Debdou, the community is completely gone. They might go back, actually, they in fact go back annually for different festivals, but it's completely gone. And in that case, for instance, just to give you another example, we are developing a conservation master plan for Debdou. And we are also developing a visitor center so that when people visit Debdou, they have a place where they can learn more about the local Jewish history of Debdou, but also where there is a space for people to, from the practical point of view, have a bathroom, have a place to have a coffee, a place to sit down and with air conditioning, but also, a place to understand more kind of the interpretation of, you know, the historic center of, or the Jewish Mahala of Devdu. So yeah, this is a long answer, but I hope I addressed the question appropriately.
Brilliant. Thank you, Javier. I'm going to ask you a question now, unless, of course, anyone else has any questions before I throw my own. We're good? Okay. Question from me then. So, Javier, from your experience, how does inclusion in the World Monuments Watch actually transform a site in the medium or long term? So beyond visibility, what kinds of concrete changes have you seen happening on the ground after a site has been included?
Yeah. That's very interesting, because in fact we are now in the process of doing an evaluation of different programs at World Monuments Fund, including our Jewish Heritage Program, to really look back at places where we were involved years ago to understand the bigger change that has emerged from our involvement. And while I don't have those the results of the evaluation yet, what we've noticed, you know, is really, you know, when we get involved in these sites and projects, obviously we cannot solve every problem. We have also our limitations as well. But we have what we have seen is that, you know, putting a site in the watch and then facilitating these conversations between members of the local community, policymakers, experts, people who live immediately next to these sites, independently if they are Jewish or non-Jewish, you know, facilitating those conversations can really foster a bigger change. It's not our objective to engage these sites and projects forever. Our goal is to go to places, kind of feel a need and a gap, kind of plant the seed in a way by starting a project and bringing resources, and in some cases, you know, being involved in multiple phases of a project, from research and documentation and advocacy to the physical work. But really our aim is that we always think that we are successful if we disappear, we unplug, and then things continue without us, because we are the guests on the table. We are the outsiders who are being invited to join a project and again feel a need. And you know, we see that. I don't have all the details right now in front of me, but I know a number of years ago we were involved on a project on the restoration of a building called the Subotica Synagogue. And it was included in the watch. We supported the documentation and the development of the conservation plan. And then, you know, we were not I think we were involved. This is many years before I joined WMF, so that's why I don't have all the information in my head. But I know we were involved in the very initial work, physical work, and then the local authorities and local experts continued without us. And for us, that's a success, because the building, you know, was in need. We kind of helped, kind of again plant a seed and for something to start. And then, you know, the project was led locally without us and completely accomplished. So for us, that is a successful story. If there is a need for us to continue and we have the capacity to continue, we definitely would explore it. But once things are moving without us, we can, you know, disappear, and then that's for us a successful story. We don't need to be there present forever. So I think all this to say that sometimes the impact of being included in the watch and kind of developing a seed project might be much bigger than that actual project that go beyond for years. And that's great. And we always say that every site that is included in the watch, where we implement projects, are forever part of World Monuments Fund family. And in fact, they are for us always a watch site forever. And we can always go back and remain in contact with them and explore other needs. But you know, our involvement might decrease over the years because there are other sites that we are engaging at that time. But we are always there to continue exploring other needs.
Thank you. We've got a question from David Pelterer. David asks, if the monument is privately owned, but the municipality is interested in purchasing it because of its importance to the local community. Do you also assist during that acquisition phase?
Yes, we never get involved in we never acquire buildings directly ourselves or buy buildings or provide funds to buy a building, but we do get involved in the process to, kind of passing over or selling or whatever the process might take, what shape might take, the ownership from one private owner to a municipality. And again, as I said earlier, that's exactly the case of the Fabric Synagogue. The Fabric Synagogue, we could say that it was privately owned because it was owned by the Romanian Jewish community. And because of the inclusion in the Watch and World Monuments Fund commitment to develop the plan, the city accepted acquiring the building, its management. They haven't really bought the building. I think it's one of those leases for the next 100 years, something along those lines. But really, the idea is that the city now manages the building completely. And again, they accepted that because we negotiated that we would help by developing the adaptive reuse plan, and we would cover all the financial costs of developing the plan. And that's how the city accepted to take over the building. And we do that. We are open to do that all the time. We understand that local communities don't have the capacity to not only to maintain these buildings, but to restore them or to even develop one of these plans. But if we can help in that process by developing the plan ourselves, we would absolutely help. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Are there any more questions? We are 5 minutes from the scheduled hour that we had foreseen. Now's a good time if anyone has more questions for Javier. And if not, let's have a look. Wait, yes, I've just received one. Oh no, it's a thank you from David. And also another one I have here is Javier. In recent years, we've seen heritage increasingly discussed, not only in terms of conservation, but also in relation to social resilience, geopolitical tensions, and so on. So in your view, how can programs like the World Monuments Watch help not only preserve sites, but also strengthen the role of heritage as a resource for communities in complex political contexts?
Yeah, another good question. Before I answer the question, I just want to mention that I just put the link to the nomination page in the chat, so that way it's easier and more accessible for everyone. Just click on the link and that will take you to the nomination page. And within that page, you will see the nomination form. And now going back to your question, I think that's really critical these days, especially nowadays in the global political context that we are living. For us, we always approach these buildings, as I showed through the Fabric Synagogue project, through participation and engagement of all different actors, and that includes different community members from different religious groups. That is very critical because sites like these not only are part of the local Jewish history, but they are part of the local history, period, and the local significance. And to us, as a global organization, they are part of the global narrative of who we are. And it's important that when we think about their future, especially if they are going to become something else, which is the case of the Fabric Synagogue, to engage everyone who has a connection to the building, because they are part of the local Jewish community or because they live in the neighborhood and they might be non-religious or Christian or Catholic or whatever other religion they might be, but this is a building that is part of the local history and also has a potential to keep contributing to local and social life. So for us, that's why it's very important that every project we engage in it through a participatory process, because what I just said is great, but if we don't actually apply a methodology and a process that really brings people together, we wouldn't succeed. So really bringing people together through a participatory planning process that brings different community members, different authorities, different experts is key. And to engage them in different ways, they sometimes need to be engaged in different ways, and to listen to them. So that also, if there is a sense of ownership already, obviously we want to reinforce that. But if that sense of ownership and belonging needs to be explored more deeply, we also try to facilitate those conversations as well. And that is, for instance, what we are doing now in Bukhara, in Uzbekistan, where we have been mapping and documenting the traditional Bukharian Jewish houses that were abandoned when largely the Bukharian Jewish community left, mainly to Israel, but also there's a big Bukharian Jewish community here in New York. And we've been doing that with a small community that still lives in Bukhara, but also with everyone who lives in the historic center of Bukhara. And in fact, we've realized that there is a huge, strong sense of ownership and pride of these buildings for people who are Muslim. And in many cases, they've been actually preserving these buildings with a lot of care. And in other cases, they haven't, but not for kind of religious reasons, but really for economic reasons, because a lot of developers come with the idea of making money, and kind of, it's easier just to demolish a building and just build something new. So it's our goal to really, bring all these different groups together, and through these participatory processes that also involve a lot of social events and meetings. It requires a lot of work, a lot of additional work. It's not easy. It's easy to say, but not to do. But I think, that's how we approach buildings, projects. We approach them always through community engagement, participatory processes. And that is the only way to bring all these different actors together. Otherwise, we wouldn't be successful, really.
Javier, let me once again thank you for your time, for your presentation. I will also like to thank all the people that participated in today's session from the network and from our also network of stakeholders and colleagues. Inviting you to follow up, to encourage you to participate in this program, and we'll be delighted to continue working and also supporting, giving visibility to this amazing initiative that is one of its kind. So Javier, thank you so much again. We'll love to, just out of curiosity, now is the nomination process. When do you think that the resolutions, they will be published? How much
Yes,
time
that's
it
a good
takes?
question. I just placed my email in the chat, by the way. So if someone wants to follow up, have questions, ideas of projects, sites, please reach out directly. The review process, to answer your question, and on this closing moment, the review process will take a few months because it's very rigorous. And again, there is a lot of layers of review, internal and external. But we basically will spend the entire summer going through all the nominations and having very intense internal discussions, also with the external reviewers. And the idea is that we will announce the 25 sites that are included in the 2027 watch early next year, probably between January and February of 2027. The reality is that we'll know the final sites included in the watch around October and November. And it's at that time that if your site has been included, we might reach out to you to start planning for the big announcement. This is important because once we announce the sites included in the watch, this receives a lot of press coverage and visibility global here in the US, but also we want to make sure that locally this is covered. So we always work with our local nominators to understand who are the local press that we should be in contact with to ensure that they know that this building has been included in the watch, and really work hard with them to make sure that they also receive all the domestic local visibility in their country. So yeah, towards the end of the year, we'll know confidentially, and then early next year is when we announce the sites included in the watch.
Fantastic, Javier. So thank you for this last answer, and thank you again to you and to all the people that shared today this time together. We are going to stay tuned to the news of the program watch, and obviously, yeah, we'll be in contact soon. Thanks again. Good morning for you, Javier. Good afternoon for the rest of us, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.